This is one of the most fascinating stories I have ever heard. It's a story of some of the most powerful people in the world coming across some of the most primitive people in the world. And this story, once upon a time, quite literally stopped the entire world. But then as quickly as it rose up, it seemed to be almost silenced. This is the story of Michael Rockerfeller, and it might not end how you think it does. I've been dropped here on the coast of New Guinea. This is as close as I could get to the exact site of the incident, and I'm out here for the next few days for my own survival challenge. Oh yes! Woo! That was awesome. Oh wow. Huge. And the survival challenge begins now. I'll tell you the entire story as we go. I just want to show you what I've got in my pack today. This is the bag I'm going to be carrying in here. I've got camera gear, power bank, drone, and more GoPros. As far as survival items, at the time this story takes place, Michael was traveling with 30 steel blades like this. They really came in handy for him, I'll tell you why, as well as some fishing line and some hooks. And these items here, simple items in today's age, but they were worth literally more than gold back then. And this was able to help him try and complete the mission he was here for. And one of these in each pocket. Anyway, I'll tell you all about it as we go. For now, we're burning daylight, so let's get into it. There is a bit of a mangrove river here that comes down through this pristine rainforest behind me. And this mangrove system is going to play a large part in this story. All right, let's start this story at the beginning. If you hadn't already recognized the Rockerfeller surname, Michael Rockerfeller was born into one of the most powerful families that have ever lived. At the time, his grandfather was quite literally the richest person in the world. His father was the governor of New York and would later become the vice president of USA. Needless to say, this is a very, very powerful family. Young Michael, who's in his early 20s at this stage, wants to live up to his name and impress the rest of his family. They've got a whole heap of assets, but one of their assets is the Museum of Primitive Art. Michael takes a liking to this and heads off on his own mission around the world to some of the most isolated and primitive parts of the world in order not just to collect this art, but basically try and get a bit of a feel of the artists behind the art. And unfortunately for Michael, this is the mission where his story sort of starts and ends. He'd heard about a very, very interesting group of people living isolated from the outside world in Papua New Guinea. These people practiced quite proudly headhunting, something that sort of makes most people, you know, shudder up their spine. But this was a huge part of their culture, and we'll find out a little bit more about that later. But Michael was determined to go and collect some of the artifacts from this area. He acquired a little boat, a very little boat with an outboard motor on it. This was sort of the first outboard motor that had made it to this part of the world. Because of course money wasn't an issue for young Michael. He hopped on, he was heading to a very remote village, and the bay he was heading across is not too dissimilar to this. A large bay with all sorts of sort of mangrove creeks leading into it, and that's why I actually chose an area like this, all around pristine rainforest. He ran into some rough weather. There was wind and tide causing some big waves, and basically Michael's little catamaran boat actually flipped over. On board was two local young guides, and they pretty quickly set off and swam ashore. Michael and his mate both stayed on board the upturned catamaran. They had so much precious cargo on board. They had the knives and the axe blades and the fishing hooks and all these items which they were then going to use to trade for this primitive art. After a period of time, they realized they weren't getting any closer to shore, and this is when Michael made what proved to be a bit of a fatal decision. They judged that they were about 10 miles offshore, and Michael, being a pretty fit young bloke, thought he could make it ashore. So he gets in the water, he straps a gasoline tank each side to him just to basically help him float. He looks up at his best mate, who really advised that he shouldn't do this, and he goes to him, "Mate, I think I can make it." And he set off swimming for shore. And these were the last words that anyone officially heard of Michael Rockerfeller. There's some crazy theories that have popped up. I'm going to share with you the three most credible, and actually one of them is not just a probable but almost a definite. So 3 stories coming up, guys. They're absolutely amazing.
His wildest dreams, yet one from which he would never return.
We are assuming that Michael made that swim and made it ashore. He was confident he could, so let's give him the benefit of the doubt, and that is where we'll pick up from. I really wanted to see if he would have been able to survive with these type of resources around long enough for the search party, which eventually comes, to come and find him. And I reckon the first thing he would have been looking to do is just walk along the high tide line and just to see what washed in. He could have had things wash in from his own boat, or there could be all sorts of useful stuff. So let's do that. Let's have a walk along and see what we find. Unfortunately, in today's age of plastic, man, wherever I've been anyway, in remote areas, you don't have to walk far until you find plastic and water bottles. This one's holding a little bit. It might come in handy for us. Actually, look at this rubbish pile here. We've got deodorant, which isn't going to work. We've got all sorts of plastics. I'm going to limit the use of plastics on this survival episode. They can come in handy for other things, just because Michael wouldn't have had access to too much plastic on his one. This is promising. This has got no nut in it, but if I find some of these that generally wash in on the tide line, they might be able to come in handy for us later. That's better. Now these are a box fruit. There's a nut inside this which can act as a poison for fish. So if we can find the right area, get this open and crush this nut up, we might be able to catch some fish with it. Oh, this is exciting, guys. This is a great sign, not just because it's a beautiful yellow flower, but this is a beach hibiscus. And you can see actually along this entire coast, it is covered in beach hibiscus. And this is a really cool plant because it's probably the best tree going to start a friction fire. And while we're out here, guys, we're going to find a few crucial things. We're going to have to try find food, water, make shelter. And fire is a massive part of basically survival out here. If we can get a fire going with this tree, that'll make our time out here a whole lot better. Let's just try and see if we can find the right. Yeah, look at this. And there's our first bit of bush tucker anyway, guys. The beach hibiscus. It's actually quite nice and sweet down the bottom especially. It's a lot better than you'd think. What else have we got? I'm going to dive into the back here. We want to find some old beach hibiscus bits of wood that we can get out in the sun and let them dry. Oh man, it's thick. Maybe this bit. This bit here is perfectly straight. That is what we're after. I'll take him out. Look how straight that bit is. All right, that's awesome. And I'm gonna try and do a friction fire a little bit later on. Look how straight this one is. That is absolutely dead straight. But the thing with this is it's green. So while it's so hot today, I'm hoping I can take the skin off, take the bark off, and then let it dry out. This is the other great thing about the beach hibiscus. It's incredibly useful to use as a tie down strap or anything like that when building shelters, because that is just not gonna break. Crazy, eh? You can make ropes and lashings with it, and that's what I'll do with this. You can actually shape it a little bit while it's still green, but this is the section I want to use. Let's hope it can dry out in time for us to have a fire. All right, we'll leave that here on the stones. And then this bit here is what I want to use as my base plate. All around it is wet, but if we can get into the middle there, it might be dry enough. Yeah, it's nice and dry in the middle there. Even that might just about do it. All right, that can be the base plate. Let's let this dry out and keep moving. Let's use this one. Bugger. 20 minutes later, we're good. Actually, I like the look of this one for a fishing rod. Reckon we can catch a fish with this? Alrighty, we are locked and loaded. Alright, let's go fishing. But the best bait I've found is only really small hermit crabs, so we might need to do like use a hermit crab to catch a smaller fish, use a smaller fish to catch a bigger fish. Let's see how we go. Oh, there's some fish spooking in here. See that? Actually, there's fish spooking here, but there's a larger shadow just on the other side of this channel here. I'm gonna need to put the drone in the air to get a better look at this. That yeah, that looks everything like a crocodile. I'm gonna need to get a bird's eye view. Oh, I just can't quite tell. I mean, it looks a lot like a crocodile, but see if we can get any movement out of it at all. I'm not sure. I'm just gonna have to be right on edge here. It's not the biggest croc in the world either, so I'll be able to get around here. All right, that's a good start. Now, I wasn't gonna let the remote jungles of West Papua get in the way of me trying to keep my New Year's resolution for once in my life. So this year I promised to take a little bit of better care of my health, and I knew, knowing myself, I was just not gonna follow some extravagant diet or complex workout plan. But one thing I reckon even I can manage is having AG1 once a day. Pretty proud of myself, I haven't missed a day yet this year. The things that I have most noticed is I've got a higher level of energy sustained throughout the entire day, which is just awesome. And since I've been drinking it regularly, I haven't had any of those horrible days where you might just be lacking a bit of motivation, you feel lethargic and bloated and heavy. I haven't had any of those days. Kind of feel like I got a bit of a spring in my step, you know. I'm sort of ready to climb a mountain or trek through a jungle or dive a new reef, whatever it may be. And guys, I know we live probably vastly different lives, but one thing we can all agree on is prioritizing your health. And for me, AG1 is the easiest way that I know how to do that. If you haven't already yet tried, I'll leave a QR code on screen right now, which you can scan with your phone. Otherwise, I'll leave a link down below. And good news, guys, today, AG1 are offering you a $76 gift, which will get you 5 free travel packs, a whole welcome kit. Also, guys, that link will take you to a pretty comprehensive list of the ingredients and the benefits. So if you are on the fence, guys, check that out and make up your mind for yourself. And hopefully you enjoy it as much as I have. Oh, that's good. I really recommend with a fresh coconut if you can get your hands on one. This is my first look at the river here. I'm just looking to see if there's any crocodile slides on the bank, but it's a little bit hard to tell. I'm really not having much luck here. And I've just been waiting on this bank to see if there's any sign of a bigger crocodile upstream, because at some point we need to go get fresh water. I reckon up there is our best bet. Yeah, I'm a bit nervous about that, to be honest. Catch a fish, please, mister. All right, I'm keen to try and get up this river. So I'm just packing a bit of a pack of box fruit. Well, the most poisonous part is the seed inside. So these ones might have been drifting around for a while. Let's see what state they're in. Oh, that's a big seed in that one. That's what we're after. All right, one seed. That's the seed when it hasn't gone rotten. I'm not sure if it loses any of its poisonous powers when it goes rotten, but I'm gonna bring all of this up. All right, save a couple for down here. There we go, guys, box fruit seeds. Let's go catch some fish. All right, when that sun next comes out so I can see, I'm gonna try and make a dash for it up this river and quickly get onto one of the riverbanks. Oh man, I'm just keeping a bit quiet. I'm really on edge, that whole walk there, but I'm gonna try as best I can now stick to one of the riverbanks. All right, let's head into these mangroves. So the area Michael found himself in was really characterized by mangrove muddy swamps and he was amazed that people could even live there. This, I reckon, would be pretty similar to the environment he would have found himself in when he went ashore. It can be a great source of food, the mangroves. I'm going to be keeping my eye out for things like mud crabs, mud mussels. I've already seen a couple of pig tracks. If we get a little pig, oh man, everybody loves bacon. Oh, a lot of people don't eat bacon, but I really love bacon. Also things like a little crocodile. I have heard some birds sort of spook, so I'm going to kind of shut up and just sneak through here and see what we can sneak up on. What the hell was making that noise? That by far looks like the best chance at a decent fish. That hole's nice and deep, lots of structure around. I've just got to find the right bait. They are little pig tracks. Good thing about that, if I could catch a pig, that's great eating, but the bad thing about that is that means this would be a prime spot for a crocodile to be sitting in one of these pools. Because if there's pigs he can get access to, yeah, it'd be a great spot for him to sit and wait in ambush. Just caught a crab. This might be big enough to catch something big. Oh, you over the tree. Things aren't going to plan here. My crab was caught on a tree. The bait came off, sunk down there, was immediately eaten by a fish. My hook is still in the tree. Now that I have sufficiently spooked everything from our secret fishing hole, we'll continue with the story. The two local blokes that were on board with Michael, they made it ashore and almost immediately made it to a village and spread the word. That weird, rich, white guy that's trying to buy all of our art, his boat sunk, he's out at sea. Send out a search party. Pretty quickly, this went up the chain of command, and then what happens next is quite amazing, actually. Word got back to the Rockefellers in the USA.
Hopefully they'll find him before we get there, but to be there when they do find him. So if there's anything I can do, I will.
And within about 24 hours, there was a full-blown search party in search of Michael Rockerfeller, but not like any search party that the world had ever seen. So picture a similar setting to this, just mangroves and mud, and the villagers that lived here, a lot of them hadn't seen white people, majority of them actually hadn't seen white people before, even known of the existence of white people. And then all of a sudden there's warships parked out the front with helicopters with big searchlights. There's aeroplanes with heat sensors flying overhead. I mean, to the people in the village there, that would be as foreign as if a UFO landed in your backyard and some aliens got out and said g'day. Like, just complete otherworldly experience. And that search continued and continued and intensified, with Australia's army lending hands and the US Army lending hands. The most expensive search party ever conducted ever. That search continued for about 7 days until it was called off with no sign of Michael. The only hint, or the only thing that was found, is one of the gasoline cans which he had tied to him as a flotation device. One of them was found. So after about a week, the Rockefellers left Papua New Guinea, and this was case closed. Michael Rockerfeller had been deemed to have drowned and never made it ashore. There was some rumors and some murmuring happening behind the scenes as to what actually happened to Michael Rockerfeller. There's green ants everywhere here. Holy shit, look at the teeth on this bloke. Is there teeth on him? Oh, little fish straight onto it. Just got a really promising bite. Oh, don't tell me that wasn't filming. That was crazy. We finally caught a little mangrove jack. He got tangled on every little stick coming in. But yeah, that's a little mangrove jack. Cool, eh? All right, let's continue upstream. I'm a little defeated at the moment. I would have loved to have already caught a nice big fish for food, but right now my priority is fresh water. I need to get up and get some fresh water. The new Back to Basics Kids range has just been restocked. Guys, these sold out pretty much instantly last time, so if you want to get your hands on some, get in quick. Plus, the entire range of adults gear has also been restocked. b2badventures.com.au or scan the QR code on screen. Did you guys see that huge big bird that spooked? I wasn't sure if it was a brolga or what it was, but for a split second, I thought it was a cassowary running up the river. So this part of the world, there's a bird here called the cassowary. And it looks like it's kind of outlasted everything else from the dinosaur age. It's a crazy looking animal. All right, I'm gonna keep sort of making my way up here. If I do get into the jungle, there's things I might see like pigs or even deer here, or of course the cassowary. So once I get around the corner here, I will try and keep a bit more quiet and continue on. All right, I might be up above the most crocodile-y parts of this river, which is a great relief. It's starting to feel more and more cool, fresh. It's getting shallower. I think we're getting closer to fresh water. Following a mangrove river upstream is a pretty good bet because it'll eventually turn into fresh water, and I think we're getting closer to it being drinkable. I reckon in conditions like this, you'll be able to survive about 2 weeks without food, but probably 2 days without water and you'd be a goner. And we've already gone half a day without water. I don't want to leave it too much longer. This is going to do me. Wow. Oh wow. Oh my lord. Been a pretty tough day so far, to be honest. But oh yeah, this is exactly what we needed. This is beautiful fresh water. Oh wow. That feels amazing. Still hasn't solved the problem of food or or fire or shelter, but one thing at a time. We've got plenty of water. I have also noticed actually just around here there's also some little fish. Yeah, something very, very exciting has just happened, guys. Underneath this next rock here, I was just fishing and spotted a giant fish for these tiny little streams. Took me a while to work out what it is, but I think it's a fish that I have never seen my entire life. One of the most elusive but sought after fish. I think it was a spot-tail bass, very similar to the black bass, neither of which I've ever caught. They're only in certain pockets of Papua New Guinea, and I might have just seen my first one ever there. I can't believe he's this far up a tiny little stream. He can't get out of his little pool. I want to try and poison some smaller fish to use as bait for the bigger fish. And there's a little pool here, which is actually cut off from the main river. There's a few little fish in there. Let's see if this box fruit poison works. Let's try that. Oh, this fish are actually eating it. Let's see how that works out for him. I'm not really sure how long this will take and exactly how potent these nuts are. This is another one of the great things about these sort of challenges is I get to learn along the way. One of the fish was actually eating them, so we'll see how that goes for him. Haven't noticed any great result yet, unfortunately. A few of the fish look like they're almost trying to escape or look for fresh water, but no great effects yet. I'm gonna have to up the ante on them. I mean, the prawns are still eating the bloody stuff. Alrighty, let's try this. Oh yeah, now we're talking. Look at that. See if that makes any difference. All right, while we're waiting for that, I'll share with you the first theory. This one happened a couple of years after Michael's disappearance, and it comes from an Australian drug smuggler, who was, well, he was smuggling drugs. And he says that he met Michael Rockerfeller himself a few years after the disappearance and after everything had sort of settled down on an island off the coast of New Guinea. It was in the right sort of area. And Michael apparently was living there with the native people, and he was set up almost like a semi-permanent camp on one of these islands, and it seemed like he moved with the seasons. This bloke didn't give his name, but we'll call him the Australian drug smuggler. He went to an American reporter, told him this, and anyway, the American reporter jumped on a plane, flew directly to this place. It would have been, you know, a few days travel to eventually get there, boats and all the rest of it. And once he arrived at the island where Michael Rockerfeller was supposedly living, there was a couple of abandoned huts on the beach. There was a couple of fire pits which were still, the last of the smoke was coming off the embers. It's like people had up and left in a hurry. This reporter searched far and wide, but nothing ended up coming from that theory that Michael Rockerfeller was living there. Although that did lead some people to believe that maybe Michael Rockerfeller wanted to kind of get away from the Rockefeller name and everything that brought, and that maybe he had faked his disappearance in order to live happily with the people of Papua New Guinea, which he seemingly loved so much. And the third theory coming up later in the episode is almost supports this theory. There we go. Got him. You can see that he was just dopey as. You can't normally just pick him up like that. There's definitely one dead fish in there. There's a couple of slower ones around the outside. I'll grab this guy. Perfect. That's the exact size we need as bait to try and catch that spot tail bass. Doesn't seem to have affected the prawns in here. I'm actually going to open the river back up and let this flush it all out so it doesn't keep poisoning everything in there. Once it flushes out, it just becomes diluted. Let's do that and try catch a fish. That is a pretty good looking bait, I reckon. No luck on the first cast. Can't believe it, I've drifted that bait down every side of that cave and can't get a bite. I haven't seen him again. I really want to have a look under that cave, so I don't have a mask, but I'm going to take the camera under and see if we can spot anything under there. It must be like a big undercut ledge. So dark under there. There's a great big cave up under there, and that must be where he's hiding from me. Bugger, we've been outsmarted by a fish yet again. I think it's time to move on, get back down to the river mouth before dark. Oh, this is the final bit to the river mouth. With the sun not overhead, I just cannot see anything, and that is man, I just can't do that. That's too dangerous. If there's a croc either side there, I'm just easy picking. So I'm gonna have to try and make a route through the mangroves and try and get around. That tide has now come in, and everywhere I was walking out of the water is now flooded. I really don't want to be here right now. This is a horrible situation to be in. The glare, I just can't see how deep it is. Oh man, let's just go for it and get out to the beach. The risk, if you haven't gathered already, is a big saltwater crocodile being in here in ambush somewhere waiting for a pig, and then me coming through smelling like a pig, and he just grabs a hold of me. But let's get out of there. I don't think I can get across there. A little bit of clear light there. Hopefully I can get through there. Oh man, this is turning into a long afternoon. I've taken a shortcut through the rainforest. I can hear something. I wonder if it's pigs. There's a strange wallow here in the middle of the rainforest. Ooh. Actually, this looks to me a lot like a crocodile's nest. They come right up the fresh water when it's nesting season, and they make a mound like this of dead leaves and whatnot, and that's where they'll actually lay their eggs. And this to me looks like it ticks a lot of the right boxes for a crocodile nest. And then, yeah, you can see there's actually almost a path down to the water's edge. All right, I'm gonna keep on high alert here and try and head down and figure out if it is or isn't. You can see there's like almost as if something's crawled up there. That could well be a crocodile nest, that one. Thankfully no one home at the moment, and there's no way I'm doing that at the moment. That's where I sprinted through before, but I just can't see there at the moment. I'm gonna have to take the land route. Into the jungle we go. All right, we've made it, but the tide has come in a lot more than I'd hoped. So this entire little lagoon we were looking at earlier this morning is now flooded. You can see the ocean is pumping in. As this tide comes in, a lot of the little bait fish come in, and it makes this a really good spot for a bigger fish to be waiting. So I'm gonna throw a line out. Fingers crossed we finally have some luck. Something's just pulled this float under. Ew! We've got something. It's a little baby shark. He must have been on there for a little while. I just had that set bait out while I was exploring. It's great food, but I do love the little shark, so I'm gonna get this hook out and get him back in the water. Pretty cool, hey? Alrighty, let's let him go. See you, mate. Oh, yes! Woo-hoo-hoo! I was taking no chances for him. He came running up the beach. That is absolutely going to be big enough for dinner. Finally, I've caught something substantial enough to eat. Nice. Yes! Oh no. I'm having all sorts of camera issues here, and you just missed a crazy fight, but this is a barracuda and it was jumping around like crazy. Oh, sorry mate. And I'm not normally a fan of eating these guys, but a lot of places around the world, they reckon they're all right. And tonight he's gonna be dinner. Phew! On this little rod, he was jumping around like crazy. That was awesome. All right, I'm happy I've got enough fish for dinner tonight. And now I want to see if I can get a fire going. Let's go check in on our bits of wood, see if they're dry enough. Is that bark's really dried out? I think this is the base plate is definitely dry enough. So is this one. But it's these ones which are the crucial ingredient. That's dried right out actually. It's a whole different color now, isn't it? I don't know if this is going to work, to be honest. Let's just give it a crack. Well, it's smoking immediately, which is a great sign. You can see that dust pile powder. Oh, yes, 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 yes. See that tiny bit of smoke? All right. Look at that tiny bit of smoke. So that is, I'm gonna get, we are yeah, we are absolutely on. All right. All right, all right, all right. Look at it going. Look at it going. Yes, 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 yes. This is absolutely amazing. Stay lit, stay lit. Look at that. Man, this is a delicate operation at this point. One gust of wind in the wrong direction. Oh, we are absolutely on, guys. We are absolutely on. I want him to burn the rest of this straight up. Yes! Yes, we've done it! You little beauty! Oh, we are away now. We are absolutely away. Man, in a day where not much has gone to plan, that was such an amazing feeling, seeing that ember stay lit there. I've never done it with a green tree that day. I've normally found dead trees or let it dry out for a few days, so that's amazing. That is crazy, hey. I left these fish alone for 20 minutes to get the fire started, and these hermit crabs just came out in fours. Bloody hell, look at that. Sorry, I'm gonna have to take this off you guys. These two are mine for dinner. All right, now time for the second theory, and this, in my opinion, is the most credible. A bloke by the name of Carl did a lot of research into this and then wrote a book called The Savage Harvest. If you're interested in any of this, I recommend you read that book. And this is what he found out. So it's important to note, to start with, back in the day when this happened, the Asmat people were very proud headhunters, and the sort of power that a man had and how sought after he was with women, and his whole kind of stature in the community had a lot to do with how many heads he had hunted. So the head hunting was the main thing, and then the cannibalism of eating afterwards was almost like the second factor that came as a byproduct of this head hunting. So this is one of the reasons why Michael Rockerfeller was so intrigued to go there, because around these head hunting ceremonies, they would carve these elaborate poles called bish poles, very intricate details. They would design these and then have these great feasts around them, and these would be a symbol of the head hunting. Michael came in and decided he wanted to buy a few of these poles, but these poles weren't for sale. So there's of course this breakdown in culture there. Now, at the time that Michael's boat sunk, the tide was favorable and it actually started pushing him in, and he made it just off the coastline. They saw what they thought was a crocodile. They all yelled out, "Crocodile, crocodile," and came over to it, and they saw someone they recognized. Michael had tried to buy these bish poles off them. They had a brief discussion amongst themselves. Now, guys, this is for mature audiences only, okay? So Michael was just completely out of energy and desperate for any help. He signaled to him, put up his hand, hoping to get pulled into the canoe, but they decided a different fate for Michael. While he was still in the water, one spear went straight into the side of him. They then carried Michael into the canoe. That's when the chanting started, of a custom of the head hunting. They went into a sacred place, and that's where they then killed Michael and spoke then in great detail how they consumed all of his body. They ate every last part of it, as is practice with the head hunting. They crack open the skull in a certain spot there at the temple and remove the lower jaw, and that's where they actually get the brain out to eat the brain as well. His tibia, the long bone in his leg, was used as a dagger, and there's very, very intricate specific details about who, specific names, ate which part of Michael and what was done with his head, what was done with his tibia. But this wasn't just pointless killing just for the sake of it. The Asmat people strongly believe that everything in this universe needs to be balanced, and while we might quite simply say it's an act of revenge, it's actually a hell of a lot deeper than that. A few years before Michael had come along, their previous interaction with white people, the Dutch at this point had control of this area, and they were trying to teach the cannibals a lesson, their quote of what they were doing. And they basically went in and just massacred a heap of the most important and most prominent people in the Asmat community. So of course the Asmats hadn't forgotten, and 4 years later when they had the chance and there was a white person in a very vulnerable state, it was like the universe was telling them this is time to balance and avenge those horrible doings 4 years earlier. All right, I hope that hasn't put everyone off their dinner, because it's time for me to eat. Nothing fancy tonight, guys. It's just fish straight on the fire. Nice. Wow, how's that sunset? It's just lit up. Absolutely beautiful, hey? So the good news is we've got a little bit of food. The bad news is don't have any shelter. You know those palm trees up the river we saw, those napa palms? I was hoping to get them, those palm fronds, to come and build a hut, but just the day got away from me, and then we couldn't get back up the river safely. It's just sleeping on the beach tonight. Nice. Really white meat on the barracuda. Not as slimy or stinky when it's cooked. Man, there's nothing wrong with that. That's quite good actually. It just tastes like fish. Compare it to this little guy. This little thumbprint emperor is a little bit sweeter, so a little bit nicer. But overall, guys, I'm really, really happy with this. There's a couple of fishing hooks and fishing line that Michael had is so important in this part of the world. It just makes life a hell of a lot easier. And he knew that. That's why he was trading them with the Asmat people. All right, guys, I'm gonna wolf this down. And then I'm keen to go for a bit of a spotlight and see if there's any crocodiles where we've been walking today. All right. Let's go for a bit of a walk and a spotlight. I must admit, being out here in a complete different country and one of the most remote places on Earth, at about this time of the night, you always kind of get the feeling like, man, I hope I sleep well tonight, otherwise it's going to be a long night. But we'll see how we go. Even just all the noises are different. The noises from the jungle or from insects and birds that I'm just not familiar with. So this is cool. This is exciting. I haven't seen any crocodile eyes, but man, there's no way I'm walking up there now to get some of those palm fronds. I'm just gonna have to sleep by the fire, and we'll think about setting up a better shelter tomorrow. All right, let's get back across this little river section. I'm exhausted, I need to lie down. All right, let's go for a walk, see what we can get for breakfast this morning. And then at some point today, I've got to build a better shelter. Nice to have something a little bit better than, well, than nothing at all. This big log is just smoking away there nicely. I'll just add some leaves to him and hopefully he goes up. There we go. That should stay lit all day now. Yeah, beautiful. That'll continue just to smoke and smolder all day. This old rotten wood, even if it's a bit wet, it actually kind of delays its burning time, so it just burns all day. Pretty amazing flower, hey? Every morning, these beach hibiscus will eventually open up with the as the sun comes up, only to then dry out and die that exact same day. So this one here is going to be my brekkie. Let's have a bit of a walk and see how many we can find. These are all maybe going to open up tomorrow. It's so nice and still this morning, and it's actually a bit shallower than yesterday, so I reckon this is a good time to go up and get some of those palm fronds. Oh, stingray. Didn't expect to see stingrays in here. See that? This should be enough for a bit of a shelter. They're waterproof, So this will be the perfect roof for our shelter. Right, but one thing I did notice, guys, is this tide is lower than we saw it yesterday. This might actually be the best chance to fish in those deep holes where could be our best bet for a bigger fish. And having seen that spot tail bass right upriver, that gets me excited. Surely that means there's a chance at one of them downriver here. So fishing first, hut second. The float and the bait is just drifting around this deep pool, which looks the most likely spot for a big fish. Surely there's something bigger there that wants to take the bait. That was absolutely chaos, but check out what I have just got. You absolute beauty. Oh. Yes. Yes, 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 yes. We're gonna get out of this river here. That is a PNG black bass, the first one I've ever caught. Check this out, guys. This is the mighty PNG black bass. This has got to be one of the most sought after fish in the world for any anglers, and the whole appeal for these guys is they reckon they're pound for pound the hardest fighting fish, and they're only found in a few certain areas. And this is the first one I've seen up close, guys. What an absolute beauty, eh? I hope I've got all that on footage. Phew! Wow, that could not have worked out any better this morning. You're gonna be lunch, mate. All right, we've got food sorted. Now time to build a shelter. And the shelter I'm thinking is just a very quick, almost temporary one, because remember the whole idea is we want to eventually get out of here, so that we don't want to waste our energy building some grand big house. We'd rather use our energy on things like catching food and getting hydration. All right, with that said, let's build a shelter. All right, that'll do us. That'll just continue to grow. It doesn't damage the entire tree at all, so I don't feel bad. So this shelter is basically gonna have 2 bits of bamboo that have washed it on the shore either side, a bit of beach hibiscus across the top, and then I'm sure you can work out the rest from there. And it makes really good strapping. Use this to tie it all together. Perfect. Now I'm no architect, doesn't need to look too good, but it'll give us a little bit of shade. Perfect. I'm going to chop these guys in half. Oh, look, it's certainly not the Taj Mahal, but while there's black bass to be caught and fresh water to be drunk, my time is going to be better spent up the river. Snack on the go. Now, I must admit, when I first heard theory number 2, I was, of course, skeptical. I thought it was maybe like an over-sensationalized story, even maybe a bit of a conspiracy, you know, that one of the most powerful people in the world is eaten by savage cannibals. But there's 3 main things which really sold it to me that this is actually what happened. So number 1, at the time of Michael's disappearance, there was a Dutch missionary that had been living with the Asmat people for a number of years, and he was really the only white person at this point in time to have been accepted into the Asmat culture, and he actually spoke the language. And he was told directly from the people who murdered Michael Rockerfeller that they did it, what they did with him, and they gave such intricate details in who ate what part of the body, where the skull is, and where the tibia dagger is. The really interesting thing about this is this bloke is still alive.
Must tell me, where is his head? And then they said, die hangt in het huis van Fien. The kop, the skull, hangs in the house of Fien. Fien is his own name, eh?
He was there at the time, he heard it firsthand, understanding Asmat culture, and it all just absolutely made sense as to why they had done that. And he then passed this on to his superiors in the Dutch authorities, but that's as far as it got. It seemed there was a level of secrecy that didn't want this to get to the outside world. So that is one part of some very compelling evidence. The second part is they've now managed to track down and release some official documents from back then from the Dutch government, basically confirming what I just said. The Dutch authorities were aware of this rumor, and it was believed to not only be a rumor, but the absolute truth. This is written through telegrams that were labeled secret, confidential, do not share, top secret kind of stuff. And years later, these have actually surfaced. And the third part of some really, really compelling evidence is Carl then wanted to kind of get a feel of the Asmat culture himself. He flew over and lived amongst the Asmat people, and the people he met with over there lived with were actually the sons of some of the men accused of murdering Michael Rockerfeller and then eating Michael Rockerfeller. I guess the smoking gun of it all is one of these blokes records that his family is proudest possession is the glasses, the reading glasses that Michael Rockerfeller was wearing. The only way a pair of glasses from that age would have got into the Asmat culture is from Michael Rockerfeller. So that's an eerie thought. The Asmat people shared the same stories, how Michael was killed, thought he was a crocodile initially, killed him as a revenge for what happened 4 years earlier, confirmed the exact spot of where this ritual happened and even where his skull is and who took the tibia and who ate what. This all confirmed exactly what the priest had said. So, I mean, that's some pretty compelling evidence. Why the secrecy? Why doesn't this just come out and be public knowledge? And there's sort of a complex reason for that, and I'll share that with you. Oh man, it's amazing to have fresh water just coming down like that. Now, why the secrecy of it all? At this point in time, Dutch had control over New Guinea. And at this exact moment, they were having meetings with the UN to basically prove and justify their control of New Guinea and show that they'd been making progress in civilizing the uncivilized. The last thing they needed was for one of the most powerful and influential people in the world to be eaten by some savage cannibals. So that's why they had to completely suppress this story. And that is confirmed in all of the sort of the telegrams and stuff that were getting sent out at the time. And the secrecy from the Asmat people, well, that's a bit of a different story. Although the headhunting and cannibalism was widely accepted and something they were proud of, what happened after they had eaten Michael Rockerfeller was shortly after all these loud, crazy machines flew overhead with the helicopters and airplanes and loud noises and just something that was quite terrifying to the whole community. And shortly after that, a horrible disease came in and actually wiped out a third of the Asmat population. But the most sort of traumatic part of this is that it was an incredibly contagious disease. Upon realizing this was they had to then take the dead out and put them on top of what would end up becoming basically platforms of rotting corpses. The only way they could stop the transfer of disease is if they had to burn all of these bodies, and this was completely against their beliefs and their practices, like a slow burn of dead bodies for literally weeks. In their beliefs, where everything happens for a reason, the world is sort of balanced and one thing will be revenged, they interpreted this as punishment for the killing of Michael Rockerfeller, and that these white people then brought this to get square. This made this whole subject of the killing of Michael Rockerfeller incredibly taboo, and they were almost embarrassed or ashamed of it because it brought so much grief to the rest of the community. So hence why it was silenced from the Asmat people. It was also silenced from the Dutch, and that's why this kind of layer of secrecy just suppressed this whole situation. What a crazy, crazy yarn, eh? Two little fruit up there which I recognize. From this angle they look like a pair of dog's balls, but if that's what I think it is, they're pretty tasty actually. I remember eating them in Papua New Guinea. They look just like that. I'm gonna see if I can get these ones. Got one. This I reckon is a rose apple. And they come in a couple of different colors. They come in a pink, a red, and then this one is the white color. Yeah. We used to call it lau lau in Pidgin. And there's that one seed in the middle, but around the outside. It's a really crisp, fresh, almost apple-like fruit. That's a great score. Look at this big cave down here. No one obvious home down there at the moment, but I'm pretty keen to actually get out of these mangroves here, get out of the mud, get away from the sandflies, and follow this kind of rocky section up. It almost looks like it heads up a bit higher there. Let's go see what we can find. Ooh. Pretty steep drop off down there. Looks like there might almost be a bit of an undercut ledge that I'm standing on top of now. There's like a bit of an overhang. Let's go see if we can get down there. Yeah, this is where I wanted to get to here. Any of these cracks in the rocks here can provide a bit of shelter for things like crabs. And if we find a big enough crab, of course, he's going on the dinner menu. Check out what I've just spotted in here. I'm gonna be careful putting my hand in, but there is a hole here. And some roll-on deodorant. Man, all I can think is that this is washed in on the high tide line with all sorts of other plastic and rubbish, and a crab has picked it up because it smelt good, and he's come back here and put it in one of his holes. Could come in handy actually. Oh, check out over here. Now that is a really deep hole there. There's all these coconuts around the front that have kind of been pulled apart. It's kind of all signs are pointing me towards it. This might be a big coconut crab hole. I don't want to spook him too much in case, but if it is, I've got something in mind for him. Let's see if we can set up a bit of a trap for him. That is absolutely perfect. Yeah, it's just started to ferment as well. They love anything that's kind of rotting. Obviously the coconut crabs, they love eating coconuts. If it started to rot, that's like the icing on the cake for them. Oh man, I'm convinced there is nothing that smells worse than a rotten coconut. Yuck! Got him secured to a tree. The idea being coconut crab's gonna come, start getting into his favorite meal. They normally try and take it back to their cave or their burrow, but once that isn't gonna leave the tree, he's gonna sit with it. Hopefully we can come back and check, find him in and around the bait. The trap is set. We have got rotten coconut traps set everywhere. Now, so theory number 3. This one came out only recently. The internet loves a good conspiracy theory, and this is an absolute beauty. So recently there was a documentary maker that wanted to make a film on the Asmat people, and he searched through the archives. He managed to track down a heap of footage that was filmed about 7 years after Michael Rockerfeller had gone missing. There was no special notes on the footage. He was just looking through, basically it was B-roll kind of the environment, of the people in the canoes. But what he saw, what he noticed was there was a white man, a Caucasian man, on one of these long canoes, and he had glasses on. When you zoom in, man, it looks exactly like Michael Rockerfeller. Was he living and thriving with the people of the Asmat 7 years after he apparently disappeared? It's certainly an interesting theory, isn't it? Combined with the fact that, you know, there was reports that he sort of wanted to escape his Rockefeller surname and live a different lifestyle. And part of me kind of hopes that he made it ashore and just fitted into society and lived happily ever after with the with the people of the ASMAT, but let me know in the comments which one you reckon is the most credible. Now I'm about to have a bit of a feast here, guys. This black bass is gonna go straight on the fire, but I am running low on batteries. So you guys have seen me put fish on fire, eat fish many times by now. As I walk through the jungle at night time here, I can just hear pitter patter, pitter patter, pitter patter, pitter patter. The jungle is alive, man. Crabs and spiders and cockroaches and all sorts of weird, creepy crawlies, but they're all just sort of crawling through the jungle here. Check this out. Oh, there's a big crab here. He thinks he's sort of hidden in amongst these trees, but this isn't the species of crab I'm after. The one I'm going for is a lot bigger than this guy. This one's just slipped back into his hole. It's amazing the size of the crab that can slip into a really little hole. Must go a fair way back. I can't even see him there, but I just spooked him. He was coming up for that coconut I left there for him. This is a coconut crab, the largest land crab in the world. And these must have been what's caused those holes we've seen up and down this cliff face. What a beautiful, crazy animal, hey? Believe it or not, they do get far bigger than this. This isn't the one I'm hoping for, so I'm gonna let him go. It is your lucky day. Oh, he's quick. Those coconut crabs aren't the only ones interested in the coconut. There's big spiders all around it. Oh, check out this beautiful one here. And I've just spotted something pretty special. This one here, I didn't want to spook her, but that's a female, and I could tell that. She's carrying eggs at the moment. Underneath her abdomen there, there's all these orange, tiny, tiny eggs that she keeps underneath. When the time is right, she will go down to the water's edge and release those fertilized eggs out into the great blue yonder. Those eggs will float around, and eventually a baby little coconut crab will hatch. It'll start its life in the ocean before eventually coming ashore, walking up the sandy beach. They will then find a shell like a hermit crab until they get big enough and strong enough to ditch the shell and start roaming the jungles, and they will then never return to the water. Can survive underwater when they're those babies, but these bigger ones, they've lost that ability. If they went underwater now, they would actually drown. So I'm gonna leave this one in peace and see if any of the other traps have got any bigger ones. Look at this tiny little one. I reckon that's the smallest coconut crab I have ever seen. I wonder how long he's been roaming the jungles here for. Pretty cool, hey? And I reckon that big hole we saw earlier, that was from a very big coconut crab. So fingers crossed when we get over there, we could see a real giant out and about. Oh my goodness. Holy shit. This is the giant one whose hole we saw. This is a huge coconut crab, guys. These legs can grow up to 1 meter in span, and he will, if he picks up a stick here, he will absolutely crush it, because these guys, they've got a pinching power that is stronger, quite amazingly, than a lion, a tiger, even a jaguar. I'm gonna do my very best to keep my fingers away from those claws. I'm not gonna eat this guy tonight, I'm gonna put him back. But what an absolute beauty, hey? All right, mate, I'll put you back. Okay, there you go. It's now been about 48 hours, and if Michael had managed to make it ashore and survive this long, at this point in time, pretty much the whole world was in search of him. So if he'd managed to survive to this point, the best thing he could have done now is write a big SOS in the sand, and 100% he would have been seen. And for me, guys, I hope my pickup's not too far away. I think it's time for a shower and a good drink of water. If you enjoyed this episode, guys, there's a whole playlist of survival stories here with myself, Strick. Hope you enjoyed it. Like, subscribe, all that sort of stuff if you'd like to. Cheers, guys. See you on the next one.